I'm not 100% on what I want this video to be about. I just know that I wanted to kind of update you on a little bit of like what's going on in my life, what's going on just with my channel in general, and also let you know that I've taken your advice and all of your suggestions on board when you were suggesting that I go over to TikTok. And it only took me around a year to do it because I was friggin' apprehensive. I've been on that app before. I have spoken to people who use the app, and I don't want to mince words. It's a dumpster fire over there. If you've ever gone into the comment section of any video, the toxicity is rife. It's rife with it over there. And I wasn't sure or ready for that kind of smoke. Not yet, at least. A lot of you had said that when it comes to the goth subculture, and a lot of the goth is what you want it to be, and all of basically the things that we discuss here, which I think that we've really been making a lot of progress with here, because you see it here. You really do. And I don't know if that's because I've been over on TikTok. I've given myself a month there, and I don't know if it's because I've been there for that extended of a period, and it's made me look back on all the bullshit I've dealt with on YouTube and thought, you know what, maybe that wasn't so bad after all, because TikTok was kind of like the hold my beer of toxicity. But you are correct, and I'm stressed the fuck out right now. I'm stressed, I'm drained, and it's not only, I mean, TikTok did have a little bit to do with it, but it's not all that. And I wanted to, I guess, talk to you about really what that is. So when I first started my channel, I started my channel because I came home. And when I mean home, I mean the goth subculture, I mean the goth scene. And it's something that I don't know if you would recall or if you were with me when I talked about it. But I guess it's something that a lot of goths go through in their lives, where they kind of fall out of it for a little while. And it seems to be the same story too. Whenever I hear it from other people, it has to do with a relationship and their significant other who may or may not be involved in the subculture, or they were at one point, now they're not anymore, and they think you're lame and for still participating, and you get shamed for it and you get shamed out of it. And that happened to me. Only my partner, who is, my ex-husband, wasn't ever a goth to begin with, just sort of masqueraded as one, and convincingly so. And the moment we got married, it was like bait and switch, and went through like 50 different identities while we were together. I'm not going to try and touch that one with a 10-foot pole, because I'm dealing with my own psychological issues with in therapy. Those of you may know, I have PTSD. And it's not one of those kind of bullshit diagnoses of PTSD. It's like I was diagnosed, didn't believe it, went to another specialist, diagnosed, didn't believe it, went to another specialist, and so on and so on and so on, until I finally kind of accepted it. Because when you have that diagnosis, you don't expect it unless, you associate it with people who've been off to war. You associate it with people who have seen like hostage trauma, or like severe situations, kidnapping or trafficking, like something crazy, not child abuse, not being born into a drug infested life and having to find your way out of that. And turns out it is. Turns out that will cause PTSD, especially if you kind of stay in that cycle. I've never used drugs. I'm vehemently against them. I don't like drugs. I will stay the hell away from anyone that uses them, mainly because of the way it affected my life. And, I think we all have a right to make that decision. No offense to people who say use marijuana or anything like that. That's the only thing that's a gateway to is cheeseburgers. So, you do you. But I kind of grew up around the much harder stuff. So I am very sensitive when it comes to the mention of that kind of thing. So I steer clear. But the cycle that I ended up in is the cycle of abuse and not recognizing abuse when I had found it in a partner because it was different types of abuse. You know, abuse doesn't necessarily have to be someone putting their hands on you. It could be other things. And I have, you know, gotten to a cycle where I was so used to chaos that it became normal to me, and I'm just accustomed to that kind of thing, where I'm just built for that lifestyle. It doesn't mean I like it. It just means that when things get calm and things get quiet, my anxiety goes up because my brain is thinking, okay, where's the danger? Because this is not normal. It's too quiet. So when your brain and your body anticipate the danger, it's going to stay on high alert, and your adrenaline is going to be going even when you're not in danger anymore. So I am in trauma therapy at the moment. I've been in trauma therapy for a year, and I'm on the hard parts now. And the hard part is exposure. And what that means is I have to revisit specific traumatic periods in my life, things that I've gone through as a child, and I have to go through them almost like, you know, like a regression where they kind of make you lay down and you close your eyes and you have to talk about the things that, you know, you've been through, and you have to talk about it as if it were the present tense. And you have to say, now I'm in this room, now I'm doing that, this person is in this room, and now I'm moving here. And you have to go, even when it comes to sights, smells, the sound of something hitting the floor, you have to be really, really descriptive. And you're being recorded in this session, and you have to go through it like you're there, and you have to do this multiple times. And then once the recording is done, you have to listen to yourself tell that story after reliving it, and you have to keep listening to it over and over and over again. And the idea is that the more you listen to it, this big bad wolf that it's turned out to be in your mind that's caused this trauma becomes something minute. It almost normalizes it in your brain because you've heard it so much that it minimizes it. And I understand the concept, but it's not fun. It's not fun kind of revisiting moments that you really don't want to remember. And the problem with that is when you revisit them and you're regressed into that moment, is that you remember parts of the situation that you didn't realize you didn't remember. Like you remember the color of someone's shirt, the color of the linoleum floor, you remember what was on the TV at the time, you remember everything. And I'm not happy remembering what I remember as is. I don't want to remember more of it. So I don't know if you noticed the tone of my videos on my channel, and even with myself, I have sort of changed in demeanor. I don't know if you noticed that. I am a lot more laid back on my channel. I try to be a little bit more calm because I have to be. It's very difficult living a life of chaos, particularly when that's what you're used to, but you have to retrain your brain into not kind of going to that place. And I don't like stress. I don't like anxiety. And it just so happens when it came to my channel that as I kind of digressed a little bit, when I came back to goth, and after being in that situation, I came back home. I wanted to come back to my subculture because I was shamed out of being into it. I was stopped from listening to my music, and it got to the point where you concede. You give up because you're tormented so much over your appearance, over the type of music you listen to, about things associated with the subculture. And when you're constantly bombarded, you just want peace. That's all you want. You want it to stop. So you do the only thing you know how to do to make it stop. You just stop doing the thing that's bringing on the abuse. And that's what I did. I left goth. I was out of it for like 4 years, and I came back. And when I came back, first place that I came was YouTube. And I saw it was an utter shit show. I saw very little content that really had anything to do with the subculture, and it was very vapid. It was very vain. It was very superficial. It had nothing to do with the music, and it was just a bunch of people trying to sell you shit and saying, oh, goth is what you want it to be. Goth is... What? So it was a little bit of a culture shock for me seeing that. So coming back and wanting to start my channel, particularly wanting to touch on the 90s. I wanted to remember where I came from, and I wanted to start from scratch, start from the very beginning, where I came from, tell my story, and tell you how things were. And especially since when you do find any information with anything to do online, particularly when I first started, there's nothing here about the 90s. There's nothing. It was 80s, trad, and nothing, and now. And it was all very vague. So I felt like, well, nobody's talking about it. Someone's got to talk about it. It's a defining era in goth. That's when goth became really what it is. Because in the 80s, it was still very much attached to its mother, its roots. You could still very much see the punk in the music, in the culture, in the style, the aesthetic. When the 90s kind of came into effect, that's when it started becoming its own thing. And it started getting a little bit more romantic. You started seeing more of velvets and lace and more flowy, drapey garments. And that was the period that I came up. It was very much an awakening for me, because growing up in the household that I did, growing up in the environment that I did, and just the whole dynamic, finding the goth scene for me was the first time I really had any inkling as to who the hell I was and to what I was passionate about. It was the first time I ever felt passion for anything. First time I ever felt a sense of belonging anywhere. I felt like I was home. And it remained that way up until the present. When I started to separate from my ex, the first thing I did was I came right back to the subculture. Immediately I was feeling better. I was feeling more myself. I was feeling like the person that I was, and rediscovering that whole concept of rediscovering who I was, like kind of tracing my steps from where it began, was integral to me feeling myself again. And you actually saw that in the beginning of my channel, because that was part of the whole process. And it's interesting to see, because if you see from the very beginning when I started my channel, I was a little bit aggro. And I was aggro because I was mad. I was mad at what I saw. I was mad at the state of what I was seeing of the goth scene, the way that it was being represented, and the way that I saw it possibly being perpetuated to others. I thought of myself being that baby bat when I was younger and trying to figure things out, and being excited when the elders wanted to help me out and point me in the right direction, and how appreciative I was, and how much I was happy to be part of that. And to see these kids and wonder what the hell kind of information they're getting, because it sure as shit isn't in a Killstar Hall or from a chav in a tank top. Naturally, I saw my home in shambles. Pretty much the first family and stability I'd ever known, the goth scene and the music that I love, the thing that saved me twice. I see it being bastardized the way that it was, and I was like, oh hell no. No, not on my watch. And here's the thing, when I started my channel and I started really making these videos and I started kind of going whole hog that way, I'm good at being aggro. I am. I'm good at it. But it doesn't mean that I like it. I've had to pretty much fight my whole life. So when you've lived your existence that way, you become really good at that kind of thing. But it's stressful. I don't like the feeling of being angry. I don't like that feeling. Feeling angry is a trigger for me. And it's not something that I enjoy. I'm passionate, and I need to learn the difference of being passionate and being able to express myself in a way where I could use that passion positively, and not building that dynamic on YouTube and building the community that I have. I kind of fostered this idea that I was down for a fight. I was getting tagged in everything. Facebook disagreements, Reddit threads, Instagram. I was getting dragged into all of these different arguments and disagreements of people misrepresenting the goth scene, throwing around the word gatekeeper, saying goth is whatever you make it, and they wanted me to go in and they wanted me to set the record straight in the way that I do, which isn't always the best way to go about things. And it's caused me to be kind of coerced and manipulated into things, because I'm highly protective of my friends, people I care about, and I am protective of people who I see being victimized. I was victimized myself. I was victimized most of my life. And when I see it happening to other people, that's when I will act. And sometimes I act without thinking. And I've done that. And I've been manipulated, because there have been people who've seen how I react and they've used that. And most recently, I dropped a friend for doing just that. Now, I'm a grown adult. I am perfectly in control of my actions and behavior. So, I will use that term manipulation loosely because I made the decision to act out and do and say the things that I did and said. But there is someone who was my friend, who I thought was my friend, but turns out was an opportunist. And not just used me, used a lot of other people. And is most likely watching this video because they love to hate watch specific YouTubers. And when I first came to YouTube, this person, I'll just say she, sought me out and befriended, very, very over the top friendly, even going as far as like grooming, like sending you gifts kinds of things, which is a bit much, but I like to give people gifts as well. I'm a very bad gift receiver, but I'm a good gift giver. I like giving people presents. It's fun. So I just kind of chalked it up to somebody having the same temperament as me. This person had a really bad hate boner for one YouTuber in particular, like hate boner, and would go on and on about them. Admittedly, they would nitpick certain things about them and their behavior, and they would watch their videos, but they would nitpick certain things. Like they would look at every specific little detail, like around the room, like the crust under their nails. It's like, okay, yeah, they do need to clean their nails, but so long as they're not trying to like touch your face, like who cares? But be that as it may, when I begin to kind of fall into a friendship and trust people, I think, well, okay, if this person hates this person so much, and they have all this stuff to say, which they had quite a lot, then clearly there's a reason that I should dislike this person as well. So I'm not going to like them either. This YouTuber must really fucking suck. They must be a horrible person. And you fall into that. So one thing that ended up happening is that by way of their own mouth and their own behavior, they found themselves in a particular situation. But I learned my lesson. I did, because in that situation, I was 100% in the wrong. I should not have trusted the person that I did. I should have understood what was happening and shut it down. I'm picking my battles now. So from that situation, I've learned to pick my battles. Because, like I said, because I don't shy away from confrontation, because I might very well be good at it, it doesn't mean that I like it. It doesn't mean that I enjoy it. Sometimes does it feel good? Sometimes if somebody says something really freaking stupid and you're able to, say, make a video and you're able to confront that issue and you're able to get all your points out clearly and concisely, it feels good. It does. But no matter how clear and succinct and precise that you can possibly be, there are going to be people in the comments that will still either not understand a word you said, cherry pick things, and kind of build their own narrative, which has nothing to do with anything that you said. And you have to kind of be faced with the task of reiterating this. It's like, no, that's not what I said. This is what I said. And having to lay that out again, and then having them say, well, no, I can tell that's not what you meant. And it's having to deal with that causes the most stress. Nobody likes to be taken wrong. Nobody likes to be misunderstood. Nobody wants a false idea about them out there. And I think on a grander scale, the goth subculture is just like that. We don't like misinformation. If you're going to come correct. And nobody has more to say about the goth subculture than people that have absolutely nothing to do with the goth subculture, which is why we do the things that we do, which is why we gatekeep. And, I'll use finger quotes when I say that, because sometimes gatekeeping, it is necessary. And sometimes gatekeeping could be in the form of actually leading you to that gate and saying, here, this is what it is. Look, providing the proper information, trying to educate. And it's often seen as belittling or attacking, and the word gatekeeper and elitist is immediately used as a weapon to kind of shut down anything that you have to say, because people just don't want to hear it. And the way that it works is it makes you look like a bully and feel like a bully, and it makes them the rightful victim, and they can go around and say, I was attacked by a gatekeeper, and kind of make themselves seem more credible in their ignorance than you did in your attempt to help, and you're just kind of sat there with whiplash, like, was I bullying? Or anything with, you know, the friend that I kicked to the curb has taught me, it's that I really need to pick my battles, because it's not worth the stress. It's not worth the anxiety, because stress, not only does it bore a bigger hole into whatever issues you're dealing with as is, but it causes physical damage as well. Actual physical damage. So going to TikTok, it was like starting all over again, because I've been at this on YouTube for 6 years, and like I said, I came in hot here, and I had good reason to. I wanted to address all of the misconceptions about the subculture. I wanted to address all the people that were misguided. I wanted to share my stories and try to help people find that path. Over the years, I feel like a lot of positive work has really been done. There are other content creators on this platform, as well as other platforms, who are releasing music, they're DJing, they're posting helpful blogs that, you know, are aimed to help people find events, find music, and just find themselves and find out who they are. And it's great. Coming in on TikTok, seeing that you have a bunch of people who are on this platform, and it's a short form platform, and people who go to such short form platforms have very short attention spans. People with short attention spans are very image driven, and people who are image driven are going to view goth in the same way, as very visually focused and not so much anything involving the ear holes, which I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in exactly the way I did on YouTube. So let me condense a lot of the core information that I was trying to impart here, and I'll just do it there. Like, goth is a music-based subculture, or seldom do exist the goth purist, and goth purists are people who listen to goth music exclusively. They do exist, but more often than not, you're going to have people who listen to like a bunch of genres of music, and goth being the predominant one that they happen to listen to. And there are a lot of baby bats who would come here saying, I was told that I can't be goth, and it sucks because I love the subculture, but I listen to too many other genres of music. Goth is my favorite. I listen to goth. I love all of this music, but I sometimes listen to emo, or I sometimes listen to metal. And that was a big thing that I heard quite a lot, and I had to dispel that on my channel. And I did so on TikTok, one of the videos that I did, that, you know, just because you don't listen to goth exclusively, it doesn't mean shit. Another thing I had to touch on is that the whole concept of subtypes. Subtypes was created as a joke on the message boards. Remember the alt.goth news groups way back when? It was a joke. It was created as a joke, but the actual, like, I guess you would call it meme, but the list itself of 175 different types of goth are actually being used on that site to perpetuate this whole concept of demanding that people choose. You need to choose your subtype. You're not just a goth, you have to be a type of goth. If 20 years ago, the people that made that list and laughed about that list and spread it around because they knew it was a joke, knew that 20 years in the future, there were going to be a bunch of kids running around looking at that list and taking it as gospel. Literally a list that has cough goth on there. Cough goth. Goth with a cold, or a pitagoth. Goth that owns many legless reptiles. Texagoth. Goth from Texas. That there would be people using it to kind of gatekeep other young goths and say, you need to choose from this list. They'd laugh their asses off. And they are laughing their asses off, but now they're also kind of laughing and crying because of how seriously it's being taken, and the kind of bullshit that it is being espoused as a result of it. So that's another thing I addressed. I kind of went in with condensed versions of a lot of the different videos that I've covered here over the years. I'm happy to see that much of the reception, it's like a tiny bug. I'm happy to see that much of the reception has really been positive, but people were not lying when they said that it's toxic over there, and it really, really is, because you do have a lot of these image-based people. So as with everything, you have like the good and the bad. You have the pros and the cons, and the good, I would say, does outweigh the bad. However, the bad is a lot worse, and it affects you on a grander scale. Like, I'm stressed out, and I had to take a break from TikTok and just take like a bit of a breather. The engagement is a lot heavier over there. It's quick, and there's a lot of it. So there's also the whole idea of where you can respond to people's either videos or their comments with a video or a mention or a stitch or something like that. And I've gotten that quite a lot. They come in full steam ahead. They come in because they'll see your content and they realize that they feel very called out by it, because all of the things that you're suggesting that goth is, which really isn't, rule heavy, just listen to the freaking music. It's just that one thing. But when they hear it, they feel so incredibly called out by it, and they hear all of the things that you're talking about goth being, and all of the things that have buried goth, for example, like, Machine Gun Kelly articles, or goth SoundCloud rap, or big titty goth girlfriend memes, just all of these things. And for somebody to get angry and upset and go on the warpath about that, it tells me that you resonate with the very things that buried goth in the first place, and nothing that goth actually is. So when you're dealing with this temperament, and you basically, in so many words, told them you're not goth in your video, that's what they heard. Now they want you to take it back. And they are talking themselves in circles and very aggressively. And I'm talking triple exclamation points. And you're not going to get that from me. I don't care how stressed out I am. I don't care how much peace I want. I'm not taking it back. So that being said, I get quite a lot of that on TikTok for sure. Ratio-wise, it's way more good than it is bad. But the bad is way worse. Something that I kind of wish I would have implemented over there is a $1 fee for every time I have to listen to the architecture defense. If I did, I probably would be able to afford a down payment on a house at this point. But the architecture defense, if you're in the subculture, you've heard it 1,000 times. And the architecture defense is when someone argues that 16th century structures supersede the goth subculture because Gothic cathedrals existed before Bauhaus. Just because a value or concept that influenced a subculture existed before that subculture, it doesn't disprove the subculture. It doesn't mean that, oh, well, all of these things that influenced it existed before the subculture. Come on in, drop your bags, rearrange furniture, by all means. It's not the way that it works. I can understand why a lot of people had heavily suggested that I go over to TikTok. There's good and bad to that. Another reason why avoiding stress and stressful situations are really important to me, and really understanding that just because I grew up fighting doesn't mean that everything has to be a fight, and I can choose my battles. I have a right to pick my battles. And just because somebody tags me in something or asks me for help, it doesn't necessarily mean that it automatically becomes my battle, because I was of that temperament for so long, where somebody would tag me in something or send me a message, they email me, they DM me somewhere and say, look, something has to be done. Look at what's happening here. And in my brain kind of thinking that, oh, okay, I've been tagged in. Now it's my fight. No, it's not. Just because somebody wants you to speak up for them or speak on their behalf, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are obligated to. You can pick and choose. People are able to fight their own battles. I mean, sometimes, okay, you want to step in, you step in, but not every freaking battle. My whole real MO on TikTok is I thought I was going to do a lot of condensed versions of the issues that I hear most about on YouTube. A lot of what you've talked about with me in the comments, a lot of the issues that you brought to my attention, a lot of the things that I've seen over the years that have been very divisive and destructive to the subculture. Like, goth girls being fetishized, and then young girls, very young girls, underage girls being affected by it. Addressing the misconceptions that have been brought by way of goth SoundCloud rappers who portray us as drug abusers, daddy issues, self-harmers, people who suffer from severe mental instability, very sexually promiscuous, and also promoting the abuse of goth girls, stating that that's what we enjoy, and promoting the concept of being abusive toward us. And the problem with that is goth in itself, we're an obscure subculture, we're underground. And then you have something like, say, goth SoundCloud rap, far more popular than we are, way closer to the mainstream. So when you have someone from the outside that's looking into goth or in any way, or even just likes that music in general, they see this, they hear this, they look at the image portrayed, they don't have anything else to go on, they don't know who we are, they don't know anything about our subculture, so they're automatically going to believe that. That's what they believe, they're going to take it as gospel, and unfortunately it has knock-on effects with us. So when I kind of go after all of these issues, you get to see me in like go mode, but sometimes I want to be silly, I want to be goofy, I want to bake. I love cooking videos, I love things like that, but you guys don't watch them. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to. For example, I got some edible hatchets and bloody knives and cleaver, gluten-free baking mix. We got 2 kinds. Funfetti, spiderweb baking cups. And of course, I needed a brand new one of these because I'm constantly making my husband Yorkshire puddings. And if you're from the UK and you make Yorkshire puddings, you know what they do to a baking tin. So I definitely needed a new cupcake tin. I was well overdue. When it comes to things that I'm really good at or know a lot about, I like being able to teach people about those very things. Like, for example, skincare, something I'm really good at, something I know a lot about. So I like to impart that knowledge. Baking, really good at that. I've had to relearn it because of going gluten-free, but I'm getting a lot better now. Since a lot of people told me that they're not scratch bakers, I'm going to show you how you can DIY by way of just changing the oil and the water to butter and milk. And then you literally have turned like a box cake mix into something that tastes like it's from a bakery. Super easy stuff, and it's the way I started out. Now, I scratch bake, but you got to start somewhere. I started with box cake mixes. So once you start from the very bottom, you can kind of slowly work your way up and become really good at stuff. The goth subculture, been involved in it a really long time. I know a lot about music. I know a lot about the culture involved. I know a lot about just what I've learned along the way. So it's stuff I like to share. It's stuff I like to impart. So do me a favor. Watch my damn baking videos. I'm not young, damn it. I'm not young and sprightly like you people. And every single time I get worked up about a subject, I gotta take extra Pepsid. I mean, don't worry, I'm not going soft or anything. I'm gonna say exactly what's on my mind still. I'm not gonna lie or pussyfoot around subjects. You ask me about, people who may be problematic in subculture, I'll name names. I don't care. But at the same time, I am going to be more careful about the content that I put out there. If it's divisive, if it's problematic, if there are things that stand to harm the subculture, the thing that is my home, I'm going to speak about it. That's one thing that I will always speak about. TikTok is a very tough nut to crack. And what I mean by that is a lot of them are receptive, but it's so visually driven that you have a lot of minds to change on what goth is. And the reason that it's really important is because of the implications. Now, I could just as easily say the obvious, that if that kind of mentality were to take over, well, it's going to mislead a whole new generation of people looking at the subculture, and then the subculture dies because they think it's the fashion and they know nothing about the music. They don't even know it exists. You have people perpetuating the idea that all of the aforementioned sexual kinks and deviant behavior and the penchant for pain and abuse are something indicative to goth girls. If that kind of thing is allowed to continue to spread, then you're going to see a lot more issues with goth girls feeling very unsafe in goth spaces, because people do make their way into their personal space, whether it be online or in person, and they are approached and they are sexualized and they are put in unsafe and dangerous situations as a result of it. So that would be another reason why it's important. One thing I will say is that a lot of people will kind of shy away from any kind of discussion with regards to kind of education, helping people who are, say, misguided in their views or beliefs, and engaging people in conversation about the goth subculture the moment the word elitist or gatekeeper gets thrown around, because they don't like being shut down that way. They don't like being accused of being a bully. And my advice is, take it for what it is. They want to shut you up because they don't like what it is that you have to say. But sometimes just because you don't like what somebody has to say doesn't necessarily mean that what they're saying is wrong or bad. Obviously, I'm going to keep doing things on my channel. I'm going to keep making content here. I'm going to still make content on TikTok. It's necessary over there. It really is. Is it a dumpster fire? It is. Is it toxic? It's got to be done. It has to be done. I urge you, I know it's not easy over there, but I urge you, check it out. You see some people spreading some misinformation, some crap in the comments. Say your piece. Don't bother sticking around. Just drop and go. That's it if you don't need the chaos. But more often than not, these people need to hear it, because if they're allowed to continue and they're shown no opposition, it's just going to get worse, and it can't be allowed to happen. So, but I'm still going to be avoiding stress. So yeah, that's my update. I don't know what this video is about still. I hope you enjoyed it in some way. Thanks for sticking around, and until next time, take care.